All right, everybody. Welcome to the Why Should I Refer You podcast, which is totally my style. We're just going to come out the gate, ask the hard question. In fact, I would argue the most important question in business is why should I refer you? And today's guest, the first official superstar on this podcast, is the dude who's responsible for this podcast happening.
Oh, come on, Garrison.
Totally. Larry. So I'm going to explain that late first. Larry Levine is the best friend I've ever had that I've never met physically. We tell each other we love each other every time we finish any
True. Truth to that, everyone. Truth to that.
right? And yet we've never met. We've had a surrogate. So like Daryl Amy is our surrogate. So I hug Daryl, Larry hugs Daryl, and that's kind of how it works. But Larry, other than being my most trusted and most respected voice in the sales world, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself, including why we first became friends.
Well, thanks, Mike. And I wish you so much goodness on this podcast. When it comes to referrals, I look up to you. I just think you're the referral whisperer. I've often shared that with you. But for those who don't know me, my name's Larry Levine. I mean, Mike and I can't, it was so funny. Mike and I were on it. This is going to go off tangents, people. Y'all just got to just hang with us. But I was on a call with Mike. This was a couple months ago. And he was saying, hey, we've only been connected, what, maybe like
7, 8 years?
7, 8 years. And wasn't it like, you tell me.
It was 12 or 15.
It was like incredible, but just how time flies by. But it's truth. I love this guy. He has a message. It needs to be heard. One of these days, I know we're going to slap high fives face to face. But we met in the social lane. We met in the social lane because our messages resonated with each other. And we had an interesting backstory because we all grew up, back in the days when we were peddling copy machines.
Peddling.
But peddling, seriously. But I took my 3 decades of selling copiers in Los Angeles and I parlayed that into bringing a message that I believe sorely lacking in the sales world today, Mike. And that's how to bring authenticity, how to bring trust, how to bring the best version of yourself to the forefront. So I've been blessed to have a podcast now going on almost 8 years with my dear friend Daryl Amy, Selling from the Heart. Selling from the Heart, how your authentic self sells you has been out 6 years now, believe it or not. And I just released my second book, Selling in a Post-Stress World, just a few months ago. So I'm all about authenticity and trust in the sales world.
Epic book, right? So first of all, everyone listening to this, buy both books, but read Selling from the Heart first because it sets the table. But the trust one's amazing because you have me on your podcast, and this is why this podcast exists. And you were like talking to Daryl, and you said, "Yeah, Garrison, the one thing you told me when I was out, when you said you were out walking in Thousand Oaks, Thousand Oaks, right?
Yeah, correct.
You're like, you asked me this profound question, which is, are you referable, Larry? Are you referable?" And I got to tell you, Larry, that thing launched something in me. Right. So I'm doing some successes finally starting to come my way. But the more I consider that real question, which is why should I refer you? The more I consider that question, the more 30 years of trying to help people understand how to be productive with referral marketing without ruining your life.
Yeah.
And we've seen it, like people that just start networking but don't have a plan. They don't make quota. They go out of business and they're like, referrals don't work. It's like, no, you didn't have strategy. Right. But that's the most important question, because guess what? Inside of why should I refer you is why should I meet? Why should I buy? Right? Those three questions span an entire business. And so, and you're the perfect person because, like, I will say we peddled copiers, but we didn't work for that company that had a copier in the car.
Yeah.
And drove around. I'm not saying the name of the company, but I hate them. 100%. Hate them. Because I'd walk into one of my accounts and there's that bleeping copier from that bleeping company.
Yeah.
They're like, well, they just offered to leave it here. I'm like, oh, I hate So anyways, so Larry, the first question we're going to hit, and this is a big one. So we're going to go big and then we're going to get narrow.
Okay.
But what is your experience with referrals in business?
Yeah. Hey, but I'm going to answer this.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
I'm 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 going to answer it, and I'm not dodging it, but I want to play off of the are you referable, because it's going to blend into answering your question. But I think the reason why this came up, and Mike and I have always gotten into some wonderful conversations when I'm out for walks, but I want us to think about this for a moment, because my experience with referrals all comes back to I believe I'm referable. And the reason why I believe I'm referable is because I pour my heart and I pour my soul into my clients. I shine the light on my clients. I help them become better. I not only get to know them as a business person, but I get to know them as a person.
So congratulations on ruining the entire podcast.
No, and by the way, and that's not my style, but it goes back to I think the reason why most people experience with referrals is more negative than positive. It goes back to, are you referable? What have you done to become referable? And
One,
and we started sharing this prior to the us recording this. Is I hold you in high regards, Mike, when it comes to referrals, because I think I've coined this thing, you're the referral whisperer, and I said, tongue in cheek, way more about referrals in integrating them than I do. But right, but the big but is I just learned that the more I poured myself into my clients, the more I understood their goals, their dreams, their aspirations, and how I can help them get there, then this happened. The more I believe I've earned the right to ask for help. And I equate that help to referrals. So, my experience in this is I just believe that the more I poured into these people, the more they would pour into me. And my experience with asking for referrals, it wasn't referrals to a sale. It was just a referral to a conversation I can have with somebody. And the common theme in all of this was the three people that were in the mix: myself, my client, and the person they referred me to. And all I was looking for was a conversation. So all my experiences with referrals have been positive. I haven't had that much negative experience with referrals, because the referrals that I got were referral to a conversation, which pushed me to the front of the line with the trust factor almost immediately.
so that's great. Um, Everyone, there is a transcript with this. You should read it. So Larry, which is normal, everyone understand Larry and I have been talking about this stuff for over 12 years. And so this, which is why we're not following the agenda of the podcast, because we wouldn't anyways. A couple points I want to highlight, Larry, and then get you to
Yeah.
agree or disagree. So the first and most important part is you're not asking your clients to make the sale for you. You're asking them to give you a favorable introduction, to have a conversation. That right there dramatically, and I talk about this in my book, Can I Borrow Your Car? That dramatically reduces the risk of everyone in that three-way relationship, right? Because fundamentally, and this is a question now for you, I think the biggest problem in referrals is two-part. Number one, we want to offload the responsibility of being a professional salesperson onto the referral source. We want them to figure out who we should meet. We want them to convince them to meet. We want
Yeah.
them to have that person ready to buy. Well, there's a big problem with that. The interval of time that someone is in the market, take a business owner, is in the market for a particular product or service and knows no one else to buy from, is so small it's not funny. And yet, so much of marketing, so much of sales, and almost all of the other referral people are trying to identify that brief moment in time. What you need to do is exactly what Larry said. You need to, part of being referable is not having to be introduced to somebody ready to buy, but knowing who you want to meet, knowing why you're worth meeting, even if they're not buying, and being valuable because of your intent, which is why I love your book, why I recommend it. Selling from the heart isn't closing from the heart.
No.
It's selling, it's conversating. What do you think about what I just said? Do you agree with that?
No, I agree. And I just gotta, I have to play on this because I write about it in Selling from the Heart, Mike. And I think this has everything to play. This has everything to do with what we're talking about. And it was simple. And it's just, this is something I held myself accountable to. Now I coach to it. Is if you want to have a full sales funnel, you have to build a full relationship funnel.
Yes.
And so where I'm going with this and how it plays with referrals is weak sales funnels cause salespeople to do things they normally wouldn't do if their sales funnel was full. So let's equate this to referrals. So let's just say, right, let's just say, for instance, I'm that salesperson who has a weak sales funnel, and I believe in referrals and I believe in the power of referrals. So when I have a weak sales funnel and then I go and ask somebody for a referral, in the back of my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, in the back of my mind, I'm going, man, I hope this is a referral to a sale because I got an anemic pipeline. So you've walked into this referral ask with high intention and high attachment
Totally.
because I got a weak funnel. So
Yeah.
now if we flip this around and if you do it consistently, which means you got to do it daily, and it just requires practice, it requires intentionality. This is where I believe you can flip the script on referrals is every day you must be asking people. Now this could be clients, these could be your centers of influence. These can be prominent people in the marketplace that you know that you've built friendships with and things like that. These could even be prospects along the way that you've had conversations with, but you have not yet sold them something. You just ask, and it's just to ask for, you know,
So
who
I'm
are
going to
people
challenge you on
just
that.
like, okay,
I'm going to challenge you because you're not wrong, but you're missing all the benefits of referral scaling. Yeah, and it's unique because you've spent years pouring into people, right? So you've got to, but two things. Number one, the reason people have a weak inbound referral funnel is because they have no outbound referral funnel, right? And so at the core, if you are somebody that wants to really take advantage of referrals, you've got to figure out first how you're going to consistently and predictably give referrals to people. Because that, number one, that will 3x the amount of referral conversations you have. Because I'm here to tell you, and this is
oh,
absolute truth. The problem with having your default referral strategy be asking for referrals is it limits how many conversations you can have about referrals because people only have so much bandwidth to help you. But when, and this is like, well, I'm challenging you, but I know you're doing it. I'm just trying to reclarify terms.
yeah.
When most of your referral conversations, which 90% of mine are about how you are effectively giving them ideal introductions as a normal part of what you do, scheduling it. I do between 10 to 20 meetings per month in which the only thing I'm doing is identifying who that person needs to meet and referring them. Like that's the biggest part of my sales funnel is actually around outbound referrals. The advantage of that is when I do ask, I have an extraordinarily high success rate because there's leverage in the best sense. The other big thing that people don't get is you can't offload that word specificity, whatever that, can you say it for me, Larry?
Specificity.
That word, you can't offload that on your client. I couldn't even say it. And here's what happens. You ready? Larry, look, we're going to do a test. We're doing a test. We're doing good on time. Would you mind giving me the name and the company of a prospect that you would love an introduction to right now? Can you think of one?
Are you asking me to give you like a
Like,
real,
absolutely. Who's somebody you want to meet?
uh, okay, I'm going for the gusto on this one. Who's somebody I want to meet? Because I look up to this person. I want to meet Craig Groeschel.
Okay, well, me too. You can go first. You get in, I'm second. So here's the thing. I know of Craig, but I don't know him. It takes a second, a millisecond for me to figure that out. And that's the number one problem when people ask for referrals. They're not asking based upon research, right? Which now is social, we've got unprecedented
Yeah.
access. They're not doing the pre-work. My system is, for example, I'd love to meet Michael Kitces. Do you know Michael Kitces?
No.
All right. If you did, Michael Kitces is one of the most credible, widely known financial services experts in the world. He's an amazing guy. I'd love to meet him. Somebody else I know knows him and is working on it, but I always like multiple referrals for a big dog. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can get 3 or 4 people helping you get an account, you win. It doesn't take you a second to know about it. But if you did know him, my next question would be, hey, Larry, that's awesome. Would you be comfortable having a conversation about whether or not you might be willing to introduce me? I don't go for the, hey, will you give me the referral? I first identify if you know the person. Second, let's qualify and reduce perceived risk. I'm not asking you to give it to me, I'm asking to have a conversation. Then that conversation is naturally, and I mean naturally,
Yeah.
100% going to evolve to, you know what, we're connected on LinkedIn. I have no freaking idea who he is. Or, hey, this is one of my best friends. And now we start. So you always do who to refer before how. Technique follows the relationship, it does not lead the relationship.
So here's what's interesting, and I knew we'd get into a good conversation around this. So I got to go back because I want to bring now I have my style when it comes to all of this, just like you have your style. But I am going to share with everyone who's listening or watching what worked gold for me, and it's probably going to go against every Mike Garrison grain on this.
But it worked.
And no, but it worked. But here's why. I'm a massive believer. If you want to get referrals, you got to give, right? And the way you're going to get this is hang with me on this. Is if you as a seller can understand the outcomes, the goals, the initiatives that the people you're working with want to achieve. You might be able to help them with some of them. You're probably not going to be able to help them with all of them. That's where you can pull in your network to help them. So that's the referral giving part of this.
Yes.
But when and I still do this to this day, but when I was in the copier channel, this is something I did. And it goes back to earning the right. And I said this earlier in our conversation is if you're pouring into people, you're there, you're giving them an experience like none other. It's okay to ask. You have earned the right. And this means that you might be asking more than you're giving, but it depends on how you're asking.
Yes.
And so follow along with me on this because this is the power of this is the power of building a network and connecting to your clients is and this goes back decades ago, Garrison, I was doing this is let's just say Mike, you're a client of mine. Mike, you're the CFO of ABC company.
I feel
And
bad for that company.
yeah, but I'm just using it as a mere example. But we've had a course, we've had a great relationship over the course of the past couple years. I've been taking care of your account. We do routine reviews where we're sitting down, we're talking about goals and initiatives. I've been there for you. I've never broken a promise. You get where I'm going with this. And then prior to my visit with you, Mike, I would look on Mike's network and I would just lean into his network and I'd write down 5 people that Mike was connected to that fit the role of somebody that I'd like to have a conversation with. And
Yes.
I'd ask for help. And it would just be something as simple as, hey, Mike, I'm enjoying the opportunity and getting to serve you here over at ABC Company for the last couple years. In doing a little bit of research in your network, I've noticed that you're connected to these 5 people. Boom. Here's the list of the 5 people. Hey, Mike, I'm just curious out of these 5 people, any of them that you know?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Right. But here's the thing. You ready? Earning the right to ask. And I want everybody to listen. And I know you'll agree with me. Delivering great service is the prerequisite for retaining a client. It is not the prerequisite for getting referrals. because
No,
they're,
no, I agree because that I mean that's just that's the bench. That's what they're paying you for. But
yeah,
if
but
you
that wasn't
consistently,
what you were talking about. You're talking
yeah,
about more,
yes,
right? Because here's the thing, like Larry and I sold copiers, and we sold copiers when they weren't digital and they jammed all the freaking time. Now Larry is in California, which is nowhere near as bad as DC for copiers. Swamp, humidity, jams
yeah.
all the time. Everywhere I went, there was a cartoon over every copier, Larry, about copiers being broken and stuff. So, but I learned early on, and you and I talked about it, is if I could get some of my network buddies, Leon Gibbs, the commercial mover, the commercial carpet guy, the phone guy, if I could get them involved when it was the right time for the client to buy, I noticed that my referrals increased. Also, I usually got to write the RFP as opposed to being a victim of the RFP, right? And by the way, for some reason, Larry, I never lost a deal where I wrote the request for proposal. Strange, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have a 21 sheet document feeder? Oh. So it was a Panasonic bad deal. But the point being, and I want to get to something else because we'll go everywhere. And Larry, you've gotten to a position. And so if you're a business owner listening to this podcast, and I want you to really hear how Larry handles this. We haven't set it up. Larry, you're in a position of great influence, right? You've got a tremendous network. You've got people like me that if you said, "Hey, Mike, I want you to help somebody," I'd do it hands down,
Uh-huh.
right? There's a specific example. That young man, great guy. You're
I know exactly who you're talking about.
what a great guy. I was honored to talk to him. So you're in a position of influence. There are bad actors out there, some malignant and some just ignorant, that are, I am sure, requesting you to leverage your reputation on their behalf. How do you handle those situations where people haven't earned the right but did ask?
Oh, wow. By the way, I get asked all the time. And it floors me that it used to just really tick me off. Now it's like I just brush it off. But there's I probably can count numerous times in a given week that somebody's asking me, "Hey, do you know this person? And would you mind introducing me?" I'm like going, "Hey, first of all, who are you? Second of all, I'm never saying this, but this is what's dancing through my head." And then I go, "You know
That's
something?
what the business owner's thinking.
Dude, it's 100% what that business owner is thinking." Then the second part of this is, what have you done to earn the right to ask me to introduce you to somebody that I know? And see, and that's the key, and it just happens all the time. Is everyone knows the power referrals. I mean, you can't go a day, insert any social platform or anything you watch, on social media where somebody's not talking about referrals. But there's a lot of haphazard referral asking that's going on. And it's because I really believe in, I don't know, this is how my brain works. It just goes back to no one's been really taught nor coached on how to ask for them and how to earn the right to ask for them. So there's no practice, there's no intentionality. It goes back to salespeople are asking because somebody said you got to ask for referrals, and it's probably some metric that somebody has attached to
110,
whatever. And because their funnels are weak, they're asking for referrals
that they don't deserve.
that they don't deserve. They haven't done anything with it, but they're asking because they have such a dry sales funnel. So for me, and I still do this, I hold myself, Garrison, accountable to this. Daryl knows it. I ask, and I'm asking all the time for referrals, but I'm also giving
Period.
referrals all the time. I'm bridging people. Like, just to give you an idea, because we're in the podcast community. If I have a good podcast guest that comes on the Selling from the Heart podcast, I immediately think of 4 or 5 people that have podcasts, and all of a sudden I crank open my email and I insert the person's email address. And then I said, bridging two great people. Hey, Joe, I just had Mike Garrison on the podcast. Mike is a great friend. He would be a great addition to your podcast. This is why Joe meet Mike, Mike meet Joe. I'm going to leave you to you fine gents to do the rest. And I'm doing that. I'm doing that all the time. And I found that was that's me giving referrals. And now now it comes back left and right, left and right, left and right.
Totally.
But it's something that's just, I think what I'm going to say is so simple, but yet I think it's so difficult to put into play. Is if you just act like a normal human being and in selling from the heart language, you just give a rip. You give a rip about your clients. You give a rip about helping them. You give a rip about helping them succeed, over succeed. You really understand what's making these people tick. What are the things they're working on? What are their challenges? And you dig in and you claw in and you help, they will help you. It's as simple as that, but yet so difficult to put into play. So then everybody haphazardly asks for help when they've not done anything in their power to really help, but they're wanting somebody to help them when they haven't done anything to help them.
Yeah. So that, by the way, thanks for answering the last question on the podcast, which is like, what would you sum it up as? Like, what's the one thing you want people to get out of it? That was it. That was beautiful. Question for you. I've never asked you this question before. Has anyone ever taught you how to give referrals?
No.
It's so interesting because the Larry rails against the sales machine that doesn't care about clients, right? I rail against the referral trainers that don't teach their students how to give referrals within a system so that they and that referral have great experiences. That's my biggest frustration is referrals aren't necessarily 100% tit for tat reciprocity, because sometimes you're going to have a client that literally doesn't need you to help them with a referral, but they love you and they care for you.
Yep.
And if you don't ask them, you're not giving them a chance to enjoy it. And so most of my stuff is not who can refer, but who will refer and who is going to enjoy referring. Those people are the gold in sales and referrals.
Hey, I gotta play on this give to get thing, and I
Sure.
just be remiss if I didn't say this, and I want your listeners to really key in on this. Is you cannot give with the expectation to get.
It's not a contract.
And please hear me out on this, because a lot of you are going to go, okay, well, if I just give referrals, they're automatically going to give me them back. No,
No.
if you're going to give somebody a referral, you have to do it because you want to do it. It's out of the kindness of your heart. And it goes back to this high intention that I mentioned. When you're giving referrals, it's of high intention, low attachment. You got
Say it
to
again.
detach.
Say it
You got
again.
to detach from this. And I found I mean, I love it, right? I love when I give people referrals. It could be a referral to a conversation. It could be a referral to a center of influence, somebody that is a pretty prominent, powerful person I know. I love bringing people together and all of that. I love doing that. And I back away. And I back away. And I back away. So I'm high intention when it comes to giving, but I'm low attachment as it relates to getting.
So I love that. And this will be, we're almost done here because we're hitting up on 30 minutes. And I promised Larry wouldn't go longer. The secret with having a system for how you communicate about referrals, about how you handle referrals, is I can grow my business by referral when I give to other people without that other person having to return it. My communication process with my
Yep.
client as I shepherd them through that process is where I expect to get the referrals. Now, when I do find somebody that is like, hey, Mike, hey, like you've been helping me, I need to help you. I'm like, okay, we'll stop, let's talk. And then I get very specific. So, Larry, I love you. It's
I
spectacular
love you as well.
every time we get to talk. What is what is the best place for people to find out more about you?
You could, if you want to find out what we're up to, just go to sellingfromtheheart.net. You could find out everything we're up to. Not hard to find on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. And since I know everyone's got a mobile device, probably either on their pocket, in their pocket, attached to their belt loop, on their desk, wherever, just open up your mobile device to your texting app, text the word trust to 21,000. So it just text the word trust, TRUST to 21,000. And you'll get all the latest stuff that we're up to and then more.
Bro, that right there is fun to refer to. No friction.
No,
Like
no.
trust 21,000. All right, brother. It was an honor to have you here. You are the best human being in sales, period.
Thank you. But just before we wrap up, for everyone out there, and I mean this, is Mike and I have never met. We have never met face to face. I hold Garrison in high regard when it comes to referrals. I have talked about Mike to my clients and all that. Mike gets it. Mike gets referrals. I just wanted to say there needs to be more people like Garrison out there who really bring the power to referrals to the forefront that's easy and understandable so that people can go, I start getting it. So, Mike, I appreciate you. Good luck with this.
Thanks, brother.